Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
How would you feel about no pay for Congress during shutdowns? I would prefer they aren't allowed to leave the building during a shutdown. They get paid and they are required to work. RTO Congress. I second this. No recesses, no weekends off. Everyone stays in DC until it is resolved. This X1000. Work it out like adults. Then you get your time off. Symbolic. Reps and senators aren't living paycheck to paycheck. There's also the paradox where if you take away Congress paychecks, it only makes them more dependent on money taken from third parties, investments, etc. It's like when people say that politicians shouldn't be paid without recognizing that would mean only wealthy people could run for office. Moreover, you give the rich congressman leverage over the poorer ones to make a deal. AOC famously has no other income outside her congressional salary, while Shreve, RN, is worth $600 million. He can weather a shutdown for as long as he likes with no impact to his lifestyle. She cannot. We want to empower our reps to hold out for what is right, and we can help do that by taking away financial incentives to cave. Should trigger an election. That's how it works in Canada. If the federal government can't pass a budget through Parliament, we go back to the polls. It's annoying. See, we have had 3 elections in a row, but it's better than a full shutdown. Withholding pay just gives more power to those with the money to not care. Same in Australia. Can't pass a budget bill after a couple of attempts. Then everyone is up for re-election. Usually it's just half the upper house. It provides a real motive to get the budget bills passed, and you only force the issue if you truly think you'd be better off after an election. That's a terrible idea because not all of them are wealthy. Rich assholes would hold this over the heads of freshman congressmen who can barely afford apartments in DC, and we'd get worse outcomes because of it. Exactly this. The pressure would be on those not as wealthy to agree to a situation in order to be able to get their salary. Some would end up voting contrary to their constituents' needs in order to not have a shutdown. So, I am not American, boo. In my country, if a situation like this occurs, it is considered the same as a vote of non-confidence. When this happens, the Prime Minister is constitutionally required to dissolve Parliament, it shutdowns essentially, and call a snap election. The executive branch still remains, but there will be a new election to decide which party, or coalition of parties, will run the country. Wouldn't that be nice? Unfortunately, the two-party system is so entrenched that it's going to take a revolution to fix this nonsense. Those in control of the system are benefiting most from it. They won't allow it to change. Sadly for them, making change impossible only makes revolution inevitable. If the military doesn't get paid, neither should Congress. I don't know, we need to tie it to military. Just allows for patriotic posturing. Terrible idea. We already have a problem where only rich people get elected. This would compound that problem. Most are billionaires from insider trading. It would affect very few. The few that it would negatively impact are the ones who are newest to Congress and least likely to be corrupt. Most. Do you even know how many billionaires there are? For real, I don't think there are any that are billionaires. Quite a few that have obscene wealth, but billionaire is on a whole different level. As of 2019 data, there were 0 billionaires in Congress. According to this list, there are no billionaires in Congress. The member of Congress with the highest net worth is at less than $700 million. Yes, they insider trade, yes, they are wealthy, but most are billionaires. Come on now, words have meaning. I feel like, locked in their room till they find a solution, is a better answer. They don't lead, so we may as well. I also like the triggering of a special election. Making them lean even harder on the donors is none too cunning a plan. And only millionaires not hurt by it running for office. It's a bad idea. A huge amount of Congress comes into the job already too wealthy to ever need to work again. Those people don't really care if their paycheck is delayed. The minority of Congress that's legitimately working class would have to care and could be bullied to vote for things that help rich people, even more than they already do. Closing parenthesis. This is the answer. Looking at this list, there are some fabulously rich members of Congress. Pay them, don't pay them, it's a rounding error to their hundreds of millions. But there are quite a few with a net worth that is below $100,000. And that is not all liquid, so they may rely very heavily on their paycheck. Incidentally, this is a great way to cause corruption and bribery. You know, what's the harm in a lobbyist just covering a meal, just this once, when the pay's not coming in? How about paying them a flat rate and preventing them from acquiring other monies from specialized interest groups? They shouldn't be fluffing up their wallets from being in government. It should be a privilege to be in government, not a high-paying job. If you think any substantial portion of most congresspeople's money comes from their official salaries, then you're not paying attention. No, they should STSRT losing their seats, starting with the Speaker, minority, and majority leaders. Withholding or cancelling, big difference. It could encourage even worse behavior. Withholding, they won't care, they have enough money to wait it out. Anytime there's a shutdown, all of them should lose their jobs immediately and there should be emergency elections to appoint new officials. I would prefer an instant recall election for all members of Congress. That's how it should be. Budget shutdowns should work like Canada, automatic dissolution of Congress and a snap re-election. Barely any Congress people rely on their paychecks to make ends meet. Pausing their pay won't pressure them in any way. The only way they will feel pressure is if they believe voting or not voting a certain way would lower their chances for re-election. This does nothing. Let's restrict the meager pay of people that have millions stashed away and those that are actively engaged in insider trading. Not gonna work. It's simple. No budget passed by deadline, permanently ineligible for re-election to Congress, Senate. Solves a lot of problems. How would you feel about banning bots from asking, "How do you feel?" Posts, thoughts, explain. Seriously, another day, another 2-week-old account posting divisive nonsense that sounds good until you think about it for 10 seconds. I don't think it would help anything. Most of them are rich and make way more than the congressional salary. It should be that way. But, honestly, it wouldn't matter or change their behavior. None of our senators or representatives are hurting for money. Got a hit, in the time or freedom, since money doesn't matter. Force them to stay in the building until a resolution is met. I'd be happy to withhold their pay. I'd be happy to call them all individually and make sure they knew it. No pay and their insurance is cancelled. They should be forced to work for no pay like they have done to us. That would be fun to watch. They are making millions with under-the-table deals throughout their time there. No pay isn't enough. If you want to be fair, they can't leave the room until a deal is made, you can't go on recess when there is a shutdown, and you're ineligible for re-election if there is a shutdown, if you have been trying to get it going. Granted, that's not realistic and people will poke logic flaws in it, but you don't impact the rich and powerful with a petty fine, you impact them with loss of power and making them legitimately uncomfortable. Warren Buffett's solution: if you can't pass a budget with only XX% increases, then you are ineligible from being re-elected. Not good enough. All incumbents should immediately become ineligible for re-election. I'd prefer daily fines that rise exponentially each day. I would prefer a law that states, any year a budget is not passed by the deadline, September 1st, nobody in Congress at that time is eligible to run for that office or any other federal office. That's so shitty to do to them. They need an incentive to do work. There should be heavy fines and no pay for them every day there is a shutdown. Better idea: if the government shuts down or a budget cannot be passed, then everyone in Congress is immediately recalled and a new election is held. In other countries, if the government can't get a budget decided and has to shut down, it prompts a snap election because the current government has failed at its most basic function. Get a salary $200K, after a few years be worth $200 mil. Their paychecks are basically nothing. I think 95% of them wouldn't care and it would hurt a few of the younger ones who aren't independently wealthy. They live off bribes, not paychecks. Besides, you have to be a millionaire to get the job in the first place. It would unfortunately become an excuse for them to not work to end shutdowns, because most of them are not reliant on their paychecks to survive. Most congressmen, women have plenty of money, but if you stop paying their staffs it may have an effect on them when they don't show up for work. At the very least they should be held to the same trading restrictions bank employees are, blackout dates, minimum hold periods, etc. Do we get to stop the insider trading during shutdowns? It only hurts the ones that aren't wealthy. No investments in stocks either. Them all family members. Would have zero affect. They make the dollar selling their souls to lobbyists and corporations. Look at what an average congressman is worth before and after being in office. They didn't make that wealth via their salary. How much of their income is from their pay? It would be okay for optics, but very few legislators struggle with paying bills. There are always the handful of freshmen that room together to afford a DC apartment, but leadership has been entrenched for so long that they have leveraged the positions to make bank outside of their official positions. This will permit independently rich members of Congress to hold out and compel members who need the income to vote for the rich members' ideas. If they can't do the job, fire them. No more politics ever. Have a state representative take over until the next election. Most of Congress isn't living paycheck to paycheck. However, it should be illegal for them to leave Washington, D.C. during shutdowns and be required to physically appear to vote on reopening every single day. It should just trigger snap elections if the government shuts down. There's issues with them receiving pay and there's issues with them not receiving pay. But I get fired if I don't do my job. They should too. While we're at it, ban all stock trading and every candidate has to undergo an ethics review along with a basic test on how government works. I'd want anyone serving in any of the branches to have to put all personal property in excess of 100k into a government trust. They get income from taxes for a lifetime but must give up anything that would allow them to benefit from their role. No, because then you're helping people push their agendas by denying the opposing party their salary unless they agree. I would 100% support it. Congress deserves no pay, agreed. How about no stock trades? Hit them where it hurts. Freeze all of their assets until it's resolved. They need to be the first ones cut off. No staff, no driver, no dining room, chop at the balls. Makes total sense. That shouldn't get paid if they can't do the job.